Shepherd's Advantage Leadership Podcast, Episode 002. Well, hello everyone, and welcome to another addition to our Leadership Podcast Series, Shepherd's Advantage Leadership Podcast Series. These podcasts focus upon leadership development. Thought leadership, our goal is to provoke and stir the imagination to greater leadership capabilities. We are here to offer insightful as well as academic insights into modern nonprofit leadership. Shepherd's Advantage offers a premier program in executive coaching. Private message us at Shepherd's Advantage Facebook page for further details on this excellent opportunity to grow yourself and your leadership capability. This program is customizable to as short as you need it, all the way up to a 6-month executive coaching experience, which is very involved and very rewarding for those who have already gone through this program. Well, today's podcast is going to continue our foundation building blocks with the 21 Irrefutable Laws of Leadership by John Maxwell. We are using this material as a comprehensive foundation to build all things Shepherd's Advantage leadership. And so let us begin this journey today, and we're going to take a look at the law of influence. The law of influence. The law of influence says the true measure of leadership is influence. Nothing more, nothing less. Well, that raises a question, doesn't it? What do leaders look like? Do they look assuming, powerful? Do they look charismatic? One of the most effective leaders in the 20th century was anything but impressive to look at on first glimpse. But when you hear the name Mother Teresa, you envision a frail older woman that is unassuming. Yet, she was perhaps one of the most powerful leaders of our time. If you do not have influence, you will never be able to lead others. True leadership cannot be awarded. It cannot be appointed. It only comes from influence. That cannot be mandated. It must be earned. The only thing that a title can do is buy some time to either grow your leadership potential or to undermine it. So that leads us to consider some myths about leadership. Let's consider first of all the management myth. Managing and leading are not one and the same. You manage programs, but you lead people. I believe John Cotter made this very famous and brought this to the forefront about managing programs but leading people. The key distinction is that leadership influences people while management is about maintaining systems and procedures. Managers can maintain direction but cannot change it. systems and procedures can only go so far. To move people in a new direction, you need influence. How about the entrepreneur myth? Entrepreneurs are great at seeing a need and then going after it and turning it into a profit. Entrepreneurs are very ambitious. They're very type A personalities many times. That does not necessarily mean that they're good with people. Oftentimes, successful entrepreneurs partner with someone who has great people skills because they know that they don't. So if you cannot influence, you cannot lead successfully, no matter the entrepreneurial spirit. The knowledge myth, number 3. Sir Francis Bacon stated one time that knowledge is power. Well, if you take that statement from Sir Francis, that knowledge is power, you would then assume that the intellects of the world are really the true leaders. However, college campuses are filled with highly intellectual people who cannot relate to people at all. IQ does not necessarily relate to leadership influence. And then number 4, the pioneer myth. The pioneer myth says that being a trendsetter is not necessarily the same as being a leader. Again, this is akin to the entrepreneurial myth. Very ambitious. To be a leader, a person not only has to be out in front, but they also need to have people intentionally following their lead and acting on the vision that's being cast. So it's okay to be a pioneer. It's okay to blaze a trail where no one has traveled before. However, you've got to have people following you to that vision that you're casting. In fact, I believe it was said one time that he who thinks he's leading and no one follows is only taking a very long, lonely walk by themselves. And then number 5, the position myth. This is perhaps the greatest myth in that people believe that position alone constitutes leadership. It is not the position that makes the leader, but the leader that makes the position. Identifying real leaders can be relatively easy. Don't listen to their accomplishments. Don't pay attention necessarily to their degrees or their titles. Look at their influence. Ask the question, who is following them? Margaret Thatcher, great leader of Britain, she stated that being in power is like being a lady. If you have to tell people you are, you aren't. The position and the title have very little to do with who is really in charge, and there are several reasons for this. Consider these 7 facets of leadership. First of all, there's character. Who they are. Can I ask you the question? Who are you? What are your character qualities? What really drives you? What stirs you deep within your heart? What is the driving motivation, the underlying purpose for you being who you are? Secondly, relationships. It's who they know. Leaders are people who broker in others. They know people. They know how to tap the resource. They know who to call. They know how to research and connect in key relationships that are important in advancing a preferred future. Number 3, knowledge. It's what they know. And what they know has everything to do with their preparation and their learning process. Now, that learning process may or may not be formal education. Not all learning takes place in a classroom. In fact, it's been said that education is what you unlearn once you leave school. So IQ is not the only measurement of knowing something. I believe that EQ, emotional intelligence, actually is more important than IQ. You not only need to have some knowledge, but you need to have an emotional stability to know what to do with that knowledge. And then number 4, there's intuition. It's what you feel. I mean, what do you feel as a leader? I mean, where are your passions? What really stirs you at the soul level of life? What is really driving you, and what are you willing to act on just based upon what you feel? Number 5, experience. Where they have been. I mean, where have you been? What have you been able to accomplish? What have you been involved in? I have found that over the years to have a breadth of experience that also deepens your understanding and your ability to lead others is very significant. I've always felt like it's important to have a wide array of experiences, to not just have a tiny slice of life that is limited, but to have experience. It's where you've been. And then number 6, past success. I mean, what have you done? Surely you have accomplished some things at this point in life. And with the help of the Almighty, we plan to accomplish still yet more things. I just don't believe that you hit a point in life to say that I am fulfilled and that's all there is, and 401k has been built and life's experiences are what they are, and now it's just time to put it on autopilot and coast on out into the setting sun. Now, I believe that there is something that we can contribute. I believe that age, in fact, enhances our wisdom, our intuition, and it also aids us in continuing our successes. And then number 7, our ability, what you can do. Psychologist Harry Overstreet stated that the essence of all power to influence lies in getting the other person to participate. Well, how do we apply this law of influence? I have 3 things that I would suggest. Which of the 5 myths that I mentioned just a moment ago have you bought into in the past? What does that say about your perception then versus now? What do you need to change in your current thinking to improve your leadership effectiveness? You see, Albert Einstein's statement that you cannot change your circumstance with the same thinking that created it. There really has to be new ways of thinking that changes into new ways of behaving. If we keep doing the same things that we've always done, we'll keep getting the same things that we've always got. Second of all, how would you rate the 7 facets that I mentioned on a scale of 1 to 10, with 1 meaning it's not really a factor and 10 meaning that you really rely on it continually? How will you improve those low scores on those 7 facets? And then thirdly, find an organization to volunteer at. Attempt your leadership skills in this context. I will tell you that if you can lead volunteers and do that successfully, I'm pretty confident that you have the ability to lead in almost any context of life. You see, volunteers don't draw a paycheck. They don't really have anything vested into it in terms of their career and their futures, in terms of salary building and achieving new skills, or even certificates, or new certifications or competencies. They're there because they choose to be there. Now, if you can influence in that context, then I say there's a very good likelihood that you are going to be able to lead just about anywhere. Well, let's consider the next law that we're going to look at today, and this is law number 4, the law of process. This law says to us that leadership develops daily and not in a day. Ann Scheiber, a retired IRS employee in 1943, illustrates for us the law of process in which she took a mere $5,000. Now, mind you, in 1943, $5,000 was significant. She managed to scrape that together through savings and being extremely frugal. In fact, history says of Ann Scheiber that when furniture broke, she never replaced it. She lived in a very, very modest apartment, very meager means and sustenance, and yet that $5,000 by the time she died turned into $22 million, and she left that estate to Yeshiva Medical University in New York. Leadership is like investing, isn't it? It compounds. What you do today will compound your ability of what you can do tomorrow. There are no successful day traders in leadership development. Let me say that again. There are no successful day traders in leadership development. What matters the most is what you do day by day over the long haul of your life. If you can examine a person's day planner, you will know what a person is doing and what they are becoming. John Maxwell often says in his live seminars many times that if he can follow you for a day and know what your process of the daily habit and routine is, that he has a reasonable confidence in being able to predict your future success. You see, leadership develops daily, not in a day. So the real question and the real challenge in this law of process is, what am I doing day by day that enhances, that improves, that grows my capability and skill? Leaders are learners. Warren Bennis and Bert Nanas reported in their study on the relationship between growth and leadership that it was the capacity to develop and improve their skills that distinguishes leaders from their followers. Said another way, successful leaders are learners. The learning process is ongoing and a direct result of self-discipline and perseverance. Building on the previous day's success is the ongoing goal of life. Many times we are willing to say and convince ourselves, I don't know how to do that, as though that is a plausible reason and excuse for not doing. May I suggest to us that we do not know how to do anything until we've done it for the first time. You didn't know how to open a door in your early development years. Think about when you first learned to drive a car. All the instruments, gauges, what gear am I in, side view mirrors, rear view mirrors, cars going past us and all around us. You didn't know how to do anything until you've done it for the first time. You see, the problem is that we tend to overestimate the importance of events, and we underestimate the power of the process. We're looking for quick fixes. Events are important, make no mistake about it. They add value and they help move toward the fulfillment of objectives and goals, and they are very effective. But if lasting improvement is what we seek, then we need to rely on the process over the event. Consider this comparative chart that I want to talk you through, and this is available in the additional show notes and the ScreenFlow portion of this podcast that's available to you, and that link will be on our website at www.shepherdsadvantageinc, that's INC.com, shepherdsadvantageinc.com. Let's compare events versus process. An event encourages decision. A process encourages development. An event motivates people, but a process matures people. An event is a calendar issue, but a process is a cultural issue. An event challenges people. A process changes people. An event is easy, but a process is much more difficult. Wow, those are some very powerful comparisons, and I urge you to take time after the show to look at this comparative chart, study it, commit yourself to the law of process as opposed to a quick fix event. Well, there are phases of leadership growth. So what does a process of leadership growth look like? Every person is different, so how can we know how to develop any plan of action that really is going to result in the growth of a leader? Well, there are 5 phases of leadership growth that's common to all, no matter the skill level. Phase number 1 says, I don't know what I don't know. As long as a person does not know what they do not know, then they will not grow. So if you are not in touch with your own ignorance, then there will be no motivation for you to grow at all. Phase 2, I know that I need to know. At some point in life, all of us are going to be placed in leadership positions, only to discover that no one is following us. It is at this point that we must learn to lead. Benjamin Disraeli, former British Prime Minister, stated that to be conscious that you are ignorant of the facts is a great step toward knowledge. Phase 3, I know what I don't know. The real question in this phase is, what is your plan for personal growth? So many times people reach this phase, they accomplish everything up to this point, and they realize that they know what they don't know, but they don't take the next necessary step in this phase to actually plan out a personal growth scheme. Can I just encourage you? Don't delay any longer. Set down hard, definitive goals for your life. What is that plan for personal growth? What are the books? What are the seminars? What are the courses? What's the formal education? What does it actually look like? If you cannot write it down and articulate it on paper, then you're only daydreaming. If you do not know where you are going, then any road will take you there. If you aim at nothing, you will hit it every time. And then phase number 4. Phase number 4 says, I know and grow, and it starts to show. Things begin to happen when you exercise the personal discipline of growth and leadership development. The real secret to success in life for a person is to be ready for their time when it comes. Benjamin Disraeli. And then phase number 5. I simply go because of what I know. At this phase, your leadership ability is almost like being on autopilot. The only way to get there is to pay the price in the law of process. To lead tomorrow, you must learn today. Well, how do we apply this law of process? Well, as I've already suggested, you need to write out a personal growth plan. You need to have a plan that is clearly articulated. Again, I repeat myself at this point. If you cannot articulate your plans on paper, then you're only daydreaming. I learned that lesson a long time ago in the early years of my undergraduate work. That lesson was absolutely just pounded into me by several professors, Dr. David Bieberstein being one of them, and Dr. Wes Gehrig being another, Doug Barkalow, Dr. Doug Barkalow. All of these gentlemen were just very adamant in saying that if you cannot articulate it in writing, then it's only a daydream. So this part of this podcast on the law of process is a very personal challenge, a very serious challenge for you to write it out. You need to write out your growth plan and make it real. What books are you going to read? Read a book a month. You ought to have 12 books lined up that you're going to read in 2015. You need to listen to streaming messages and digital content weekly. Listen, there is entirely too many great resources online today for you to ignore or to disengage or not connect in great digital content. You need to plan on attending at least one conference each year. Spend your money, make the investment, and go, and put yourself into a learning environment. And then this raises to a second point on how to apply the law of process, and that is, what will you do to improve others under your leadership? Well, I would suggest plan some retreats for your leadership team. Get them off-site. There's always something very amazing that happens when you take your leaders and get them off-site. Get them to another place, another environment, and plan that retreat. I mean, it can just be a day away. It can be a morning away. There are a lot of great resources within any given community in where you can go for an off-site retreat. It just clears the mind, it removes distractions, and it certainly moves familiarities, but it gets you focused to talk about the future, talk about what's accomplished, talk about what you're doing, and where you're going from here. Also, you can develop mastermind learning groups. These mastermind learning groups can center upon a good leadership book, and boy, there are a ton of options available. I mean, classics from the 30s and 40s all the way up to our present time. There are just excellent resources. Invest in your team, buy them a book, and spend some time in a mastermind learning experience. And then get involved in a one-to-one coaching. I just am a firm believer in executive coaching. In fact, I believe it so much that I believe that it is extremely difficult for you to be an effective leader if you are not connected to a good coach. May I encourage you, research this, study this, ponder this, ask questions, and put yourself into a good coaching environment. A good coach does not tell you how to do it. A good coach helps guide you in you discovering the answers that are already within you. Create a culture of learning in your work environment. Well, our time has come and gone again, and I am so grateful for you taking the time to be part of this leadership learning process, this leadership podcast by Shepherd's Advantage Incorporated. Thank you so very much for taking the time. Thank you for sharing this moment with us. May God bless you. I bid you Godspeed as you grow and learn to become the leader you were meant to be. God bless.